Welcome to the Tiny Podcast Bicentennial Special. My name's Ryan Ward, and today I have with us Paul Scappaticci, who's here to talk about wartime in Manchester. Welcome, Paul. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. So, Paul, we're going to talk about wartime in Manchester. Let's talk more about you, though, before we start. So, tell me, where did you grow up? Tell me about family life. A little bit about Paul.
Well, I grew up in Meriden, Connecticut.
Okay.
I went to trade school there, Wilcox Tech.
What was the trade?
Electrical.
Okay.
And I graduated from there in '69.
Okay.
I then went to Prince Tech as a postgrad course, and that was 1969, 70.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Vietnam was on, and I had a student deferment, and of course, graduating in June of '70, I said, I don't want to be drafted because every night on CBS News with Walter Cronkite, and those people who remember who that was and old enough to remember, they showed all the draft numbers every night. So one day, I think it was probably in May, I said, well, I'm 18 and a half. I'm going to go enlist in the Navy. I want to enlist like my dad did.
Wow.
I want to go to Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
That was the attitude of, I think, many guys my age at that time.
Yep.
So give time to our country and go to fight in a war.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I came home, and thank goodness I did this at supper, and of course, I'm Italian, sitting at the dinner table.
Yep.
Good thing Mom was sitting down, and, I told him what I had done.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, you could see a little pride in my dad. He didn't want to, being that he was Navy. But,
yeah.
On an Italian mother, that's...
Yeah, oh, yeah.
They do, not that other mothers don't, but the Italian moms, and you heard this many times in your life, I'm sure, they have a special place in their heart for their sons.
Yeah, of course they do.
They love their daughters, but there's just something about them. So, I had seen growing up, I remember as a youngster, our neighbor was in the Navy, and of course I was Dad Navy.
Yeah.
I'd see him come home in uniform.
Oh, okay.
And, of course, there were upperclassmen who graduated, went to Vietnam, and I know several of them did get killed in action. I'm quite sure some that were in my class did.
Yeah.
So, I enlisted and went to boot camp July 5th, 1970.
Wow.
I remember, having a small breakfast, and Dad was going to bring me to the railroad station to go to New Haven where the enlistment center was, and, all the processing, and I remember my mom standing at the kitchen sink doing her dishes. I kissed her, and tears running down her cheeks,
Of course, yeah.
So
did you have siblings?
Oh, yeah, I have an older sister, and I had a younger sister.
Okay, so you were the only boy.
I was the only boy.
And you signed, and neither of them joined the military at all?
No.
Okay.
Not at
So
all.
you were also the out of your siblings, you were the only one that was joining too.
Right.
That must have been huge for them.
Well,
yeah.
Like I said, I had an obligation. I didn't want to go on the ground. I wanted to be in the Navy.
Yeah. Did you find that, you say you had this obligation. So when I think back, when I joined the military, it was in 2010, and we had conflicts going on, but comparatively to World War II, we'll say, you had people left and right lying to join the military, lying about their age, lying about their medical history. This obligation that you're speaking of, did you notice that kind of that same style in that time frame? Did you notice like your peers also feeling that obligation?
I did. There were classmates that felt like that, and other friends that I knew felt the same.
Yeah.
So,
was everybody trying to go Navy? Was it a Navy thing in your area?
well,
or
quite a few of my classmates did go Navy.
Oh, yeah?
I didn't know about. Actually, when I was in after boot camp, I went to school at the Great Lakes. I went to basic electricity and electronics, and electricians made A school.
Okay.
And actually, I ran into somebody I graduated from trade school with.
Oh, wow.
I don't remember what his rating was, but
yeah,
I'm going. oh my gosh,
Wow,
from
yeah.
my hometown,
Yeah, that's
what are the
yeah,
odds of that?
small town.
Yeah,
Yeah,
what are the
yeah.
odds of
That's so
that?
good then. Yeah.
What are the
So,
odds there?
so what do you think that growing up, you also you noticed this like need or feeling or want of joining the military? What was it like before Vietnam, before
I think so. Growing up,
yeah.
absolutely,
Was it just a family pride sort of
I
thing?
would say it was a family pride,
Yeah.
with all this, the service in our family, and dad Navy during the war, World War
Yeah.
II. So just something. I want to be a sailor. I want to go in the Navy. I want to
Yeah.
do what my dad did.
Yeah.
Kind of follow his footsteps.
Yeah. So how did school, you said that you took you took a class after, you joined the military and then took this extra, electrical, class. Was that like your MOS? Was that your specialty in the military? Was it?
At the electrician school? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I was electrician's mate on board destroyer tender. Destroyer tender's a repair ship to repair the destroyers.
Oh, wow.
They
Okay.
would, radio in, they need something done to their ships, and they'd pull up alongside of us and tie up to us. And if they had to go cold plant, meaning shut down the boilers, we also supplied them with power.
Mm.
I was what they call ship's company engineering. In the Navy, we were referred to as snipes.
Mm.
We spent our time in the main electrical switchboard, the boiler rooms,
Oof.
the engine rooms,
Mhm.
those places that make the ship go. We're important people on that ship.
I was gonna say,
Very important.
that's very
Without
important.
us,
It's not going anywhere.
we supplied all the power to the entire ship. We stood watches on the main electrical switchboard.
Mm.
And I think about it more often today than before, thinking of the responsibility at young ages that we had. Here you're in front of a switchboard, you're doing a 4-hour watch. We had gauges to check on the machinist mates, vacuum and steam on our generators.
Mm-hmm.
Keep an eye, we're the second set of eyes, because if steam starts dropping or vacuum, those generators would just drop off the line, and we'd be in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, yeah. And you were what, 19 years old, 18 years old at that point?
At that point,
Maybe 20?
maybe 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's still that's
Still.
a year or two out of high school.
Yeah, and like I said, we supplied all the power. We went all over the ship. We were known all over the ship. We had to maintain the electrical system in the entire ship, to the repair shops, up on the bridge of the ship, which was quite exciting place to be underway. And
Yeah.
what goes on a bridge of a ship? It's just something different than what I knew.
Right,
you
right,
know?
right.
So,
Yeah, I mean it's a whole other it's you're learning on, small machines or something, and then it's like battleship, like fix this.
and of course, electrical in the Navy on board a ship is a lot different than out in the civilian world.
Right.
Different systems, different types of wire used on
I mean,
ship.
even problems that come up, I'm sure,
Oh,
also
yeah.
were completely different problems, different problem solving.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You
So now, so you joined the military. You've got your MOS. You've got your military, specialization, and now before you went to Vietnam, or rather, let me ask this question: how soon after you completing training did you get deployed?
Once I graduated, actually I went to another school. The ship sent me to a gyro compass repair school, which usually the seamen on the ship do. Why they did, I don't know.
Yeah.
I never used it because we had those guys in engineering. So I picked my ship up in, I want to say, June of '71 in the Philippines at Subic Bay Navy Base, which was a large base. I'm sure you probably may have heard of it. I flew to Oakland, California. From there, I flew they flew us out. We stopped in Pearl Harbor to refuel, and then to Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines. And from there, picked up a flight, I think it was a C-130, to Clark Air Force Base in Subic Bay. So I, as I said, picked up my ship in Subic Bay. So, and of course, that was our home port there, and we'd leave from there to do wherever we had to go and tie up. We pulled into Singapore, and ships came alongside, or Taiwan for repair. And then we went back, of course, after our cruise was over, which is about 6 months, pulled back into San Diego. So it was all new. I was learning.
Yeah, yeah.
Learn how to watch on the switchboard and my way around the ship. It's
Yeah.
like, it's like, but you do learn. You spend your time there. You definitely do.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until when we were deployed overseas in '73. And I distinctly remember this like it was last night. I remember the captain. We called the captain in the Navy the old man. It's funny how things you remember are embedded in your mind.
Yeah.
I know it was after Chow.
Yep.
And he came over the 1MC, which is the announcement system, saying how we received orders from whatever Desron Pac, to Vietnam, and we were headed there. I remember that, and so distinctly.
How was the overall feeling? What was the emotions felt with that? Or even with your buddies too.
We just knew that this is what we're here to do. So you didn't think
twice about it.
You're going to be in harm's way.
Yeah.
I do know after years later finding out since I've been out, that we sailed into what they call the hot zone, which was combat waters.
Yep.
One of our missions, we know what we did. We had our work boats in the water loaded with ammo and supplies with armed guard boats to the destroyers, bringing them, we call them tin cans, to the ships. That, of course, conveniently was left off the deck logs. Deck logs, they put everything that's going on in the ship, what generators are on, what boilers, everything. But for some reason, they left that off. Conveniently, I say. So, but I also did find out, it's like I said, I've gone on sites about my ship, and people write stuff that we did something else that it's still classified, I understand. We sent some of our shipmates ashore, no dog tags, no IDs, and I don't quite know what that was about, and I still don't know. We don't know how long we were in Vietnam because, again, they didn't keep stuff on the deck logs quite accurate. We were there for a while, I know.
So what was with all these kind of I don't want to say random, but questionable things that were happening and stuff. Do you think that did you have any indication that something at that point was it kind of like, well, it's the military, this is what they do, they kind of swept it under the rug, or did it make you aware?
You didn't think about. I didn't know about the deck logs being stuff left out until years later.
Okay.
Working on my claims.
Right.
Of course, the ship, as you know, the government sprayed Agent Orange in Vietnam. It was made by Dow and Monsanto as a defoliant, but the after product when you made the defoliant was a dioxin, which is more deadly than cyanide. 66 million gallons. I happened to come across, obtain a report, like 122 pages long, of every place it was sprayed and how many gallons. Now, mind you, when it rained, the monsoons, the water goes off the land, to the rivers, to the ocean. It doesn't dissipate in the water.
No.
It stays there. It doesn't stop. It goes beyond 12 miles. Navy ships take in salt water, and they desalinize it. They run it through evaporators. They burn off the salt, the impurities. You can't get rid of the dioxin. And that's for potable water, we call it.
Yep.
The water fountains, cooking, showers, etc. So our food was cooked with dioxin in it. Our coffee, our bug juice had it. We ingested it. And there's many of us, our shipmates, happened to be one, I was affected by the Agent Orange. Very much so.
Yeah. How so, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I first developed type 2 diabetes about 34 years ago. Not thinking about where this come from, thought, oh well, you know. You just
Yeah,
went
yeah,
on
I
with
got diabetes.
You went on with your life. It wasn't until a friend of mine, I was in the car club, Chevy club for a long time. He was in the Coast Guard, and he says, your ship's on a list that was contaminated. You know, really? So at that point, I went to the VA, and yet, you know, back then, and this is going back probably 18 years ago, you know, and of course I run into a supervisor downstairs who thought he was the one who granted stuff or whatever. You know, were your brown water? Were your boots on the ground? Oh, blue water. You know, it's like it gives you a bad, you know, you start getting upset.
Yeah.
So I filed, and it really took almost 19 years to get our benefits back.
Yeah.
In 1990, there was an Agent Act that gave all blue water guys, that's what they call this, benefits. It was taken away in 2000.
Oh, wow.
And then we had to, of course, go and file. They had to pass a new bill, which was in 2020.
Oh, wow.
No,
So
yeah.
20 years.
I have more denials and things that, as a military person yourself, you understand. Your ship wasn't in Vietnam. I go, really?
Yeah.
I happen to have a whole list offline from the department. Well, the Secretary of the Navy at the time listing I think 790 ships in Vietnam that received the Vietnam ribbon or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not going anywhere. I know my rights.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, of course, I developed neuropathy. It's nerve damage, your feet, your hands. I then developed an aggressive form of prostate cancer, which happens to be on the list of illnesses, diseases. I had thyroid cancer. I didn't get it for that, but I found reports because I did a lot of research.
Right.
They granted it to a soldier, but it's like, wait a minute. You can do that, and then you can't use that report for your claim. It's like,
yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Here's evidence.
Yeah.
You know?
So let me ask about that. So obviously there was a lot of you know not confusion, that for lack of a better word. There was a lot of problems with getting a claim, you know, and proving, having proof of these things. Do you think that was this a new problem, or was this something that the VA, you think, maybe had problems with before as well?
I think it existed in their system.
Yeah.
Really. But with those the illnesses on the list, you know, you did eventually get some benefits, and then once the bill passed, had a comp exam and etc. Sent to private doctors. I have anxiety. I have they give you different ratings for PTSD, and I did finally get a full percentage.
No.
So
well, good. That's deserved, you know, for what for the time that you spent. So
well, and it helped others too.
Yeah.
I was an advocate with a friend of mine who was in the Army and sprayed around the bases. We did radio programs before pandemic, and we helped a lot of veterans, you know, who didn't know, which was great to help brother veterans get benefits. You know, if I hear a Vietnam vet or any veteran, see at the VA, do you have a service officer? Don't give up. Don't give up.
Yeah.
I continued to tell them.
Yeah.
You know, I get wonderful care now that bill was passed.
Yeah.
They can't do enough for me.
Yeah.
And I take advantage of it because we've all earned it.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. And that's extremely important, and it's empowering.
Everybody, yeah. Just because you had a bad experience, don't stop.
Yeah.
I tell them this.
Yeah.
And even then, after the bill was passed, we still had to. Somebody saw in 2015. I sent Eric Parker, if you know, he was with Channel 3, and I sent him all my information. And, you know, by trade, he's a lawyer and a journalist. He checked it into it, and he called me in, I don't know, January 2015. I want to do your story. I was on Channel 3.
Oh, wow.
From that, it just went further. I think it was like April, maybe the mid-April of 2015, I get a call from the producer of Al Jazeera America in New York City. They said, on Memorial Day, we're doing a story on Vietnam and Agent Orange.
Mm-hmm.
So they came up from New York City to my home.
Oh, wow.
And interviewed me, and they made me take out from my file drawer a lot of my folders.
Your stuff,
Just spread it out.
Yeah,
yeah. We got to show this,
Yeah.
And so this gentleman up in New Hampshire who was Blue Water saw that, and when it came time to submitting more stuff to the VA, then we had to submit a map of where the ship was, pinheads. He did it Google Earth exactly 4 miles off the coast, 6, and he helped me.
Wow,
and
that's no good.
It finally came through for us.
Well, good. Yeah, I'm sure that was a long journey to get that done as
Very
well.
long.
Yeah.
Oh, very long.
Yeah, that's years and years and years.
I was very adamant about it.
Yeah. So let's go back a little bit. Well, let's talk about the public's reception. Let's talk about what, when you were home, when you were stateside, what was it the same level of pride and from civilians and soldiers alike? Did that tone shift at all?
I was still proud when I came the time that I did come home on leave. Of course, you traveled in military uniform when you traveled. Some people, were nice about it and thanked you for your service. But I think I see more of it now since I've been out.
Yeah.
Really, over the years. It's parents are teaching their young children, say something. I can't remember where I was, but the mom leaned down to her child and said, I know what she's saying, thank him for his service. And I thought that was so nice.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was still proud. I mean, I didn't get a lot of, if they saw me in uniform, just one of those things.
Yeah.
But I think we're all still proud with Vietnam going on, and we served there. It was just how I felt about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, as you know, it took, the things that went on here during the war, which weren't nice, the protests and things like that, that wasn't good. I didn't experience that coming home in the airports because I drove home from California.
Yeah.
So I didn't see any of it,
Yeah.
Fortunately, didn't run into that.
Yeah.
But I've heard Vietnam veterans talk about it, and it was pretty upsetting to hear that.
Yeah.
Really, it is.
Absolutely, yeah.
The disrespect for serving your country. It's just not right.
Because a lot of these guys were drafted. A lot of guys, were grabbed. If for people who don't know, draft is you don't get a choice. You are eligible to serve in the military, so you are going to serve.
I was speaking with another Vietnam vet, and I don't remember what the percentage was, but he said the percentage of those who went in the military during Vietnam and served there did volunteer.
Yeah.
There weren't a lot of draftees. They volunteered. I don't remember the
That's
percentage.
interesting. Yeah, the majority was more volunteer.
I didn't know these things,
Right. Because you hear about the negative most of the time. Because this is new information. I say new information. This is newer for me. Just hearing the same mentality of, family was in the military. I want to join the military no matter what. I want to make my family proud. Every decade that exists, and it's continued to exist. Do you think that did your family understand that? Your mom who didn't want you to go, when you came home, did she kind of have did she have a little bit of a different, did she see the growth?
Did. Yeah. Oh, definitely. You definitely do. You go to boot camp, you do grow up.
You do, yeah.
I think they should still have the draft. That might help some of these young kids coming up today, straighten up and fly right.
Boot camp will straighten you out real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
and you'll grow up in the military quite quickly.
You will,
As I said, for the responsibility you had at young ages, to think about that.
Oh, yeah.
And just going back to a moment to when we were in Vietnam, in combat waters, Navy ships operate in what they call darkened ship conditions. There are no navigation lights. When you open a hatch to the outer decks, the lights go out. And I was duty electrician several nights there, and I remember red lens in the flashlight going up to a problem on the bridge, you know. And when you operate like that, even if you had fear in you, you wouldn't admit it to your shipmates.
Oh, of course, yeah.
You know.
Yeah, because you're all it's because everything's more important than the fear at that
Right.
point. You know,
It's like-
getting my job done. You know, continuing.
Absolutely.
You know, getting to the bridge. You know, getting up there ASAP.
Right.
That's what's important.
And you knew why we were operating like that, because they could have rocketed the ship as close as we were, 4 miles, 6 miles to the coast.
You gotta be quiet. Gotta be stealthy.
Oh yes, oh yes. And at that point, you didn't just think about it. And I know I've read things, you know, and through sessions with my counselor, is when you get older, that's when you think about it more.
Oh yeah.
You know, and there have been times that I've woken up in the middle of the night in my, you know, might be in an air-conditioned bedroom in the summer, sweating, and looking around, thinking I see myself, because I've gone back and see myself with the lens and the flashlight walking up to the bridge, you know. So
I definitely get that. Yeah, absolutely.
I know they call them flashbacks, so it's like,
they were important memories. They were important parts of especially at that age too. You know, you're growing up.
You're impressionable still.
Yeah.
Even if you were 21 or 20.
Even if you're 20, even if you're 25, 30, even if you're older, it is still a significant change. When you look at your civilian life, you know, before the military, and then you compare it to your life after the military, they are almost two different worlds sometimes, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So what was something when you came back, you know, when you're stateside, what was something that you noticed a difference between, you know, you having been overseas and then friends or family who have been stateside, maybe a little bit unaware of, you know, did you notice kind of a difference, or did you find yourself kind of rolling back into the civilian side when you came back?
No, it was not then.
Okay.
It wasn't probably until I got out of the service after my time was up. I obviously had to
relax, shed some of the skin.
Shut that down and blend in with the rest of the civilians.
Yep.
But yeah, anybody who was still around, if they didn't go in, you could see there's a different mentality.
How so? What did it feel? You know, to give you from my example and my experience in the military. You know, this is 2010, 2011. I was 18. I went through basic. I grew up very fast, just like you explained, and then I felt that I felt like people were ignorant to what was going on in the world. Did you experience a level of ignorance or perceived ignorance?
I think they perceived, Vietnam, and kind of brushed it off, not understanding what's going on there and, how many people were killed there and just everything about Nam. Yeah, that's where I saw it.
So they just didn't have a full. They were kind of detached from the reality of the situation.
That's how I saw it.
Or at least from our perception, being attached to it.
Being
yeah,
enlisted and in the military, they were detached, not like us, aware of it.
Do you think that's changing? Do you think that when it comes to conflicts, since then, that people are a little bit more aware, a little bit more?
I would say they are.
Yeah,
they are now. I mean, think about the news now versus then. How different it was, the reporting of the reporters over in Vietnam. I remember seeing it on CBS News.
Yeah.
Reporting what they reported.
Yeah.
So.
What do you think that was it what was the reports back then? What was it like? Was it very what's the word? Was it more graphic than it is now?
I think so.
It was.
Oh, yeah.
It was.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
So there was a lot. So people were getting a much more raw view of
what was going on. Well, when I was in, we didn't have TV on the ships like all the
right,
modern
right,
stuff now. We really didn't listen to the radio unless you were in your car and you put music on.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was just radio.
It's like, just whatever we relied on. Whatever was in the daily law,
right.
Our daily stuff during the day on board ship. I mean, news. What's news?
Yeah, well, yeah. This is today's news.
This is where I am. This is what I'm doing. This is my life. It's like, news.
Yeah.
It was just like communications. The only communications to home were letters through the Fleet Post Office.
How were the letters? Did you get any good letters? Did you find it difficult to communicate?
No, I'd get letters from my parents. And,
Okay.
I'd write back, let them know how things were.
Good.
And of course, the one good thing was they never knew I was in Vietnam. That was a good thing.
Okay, so they just thought you were over on the West Coast.
Yeah, well, on our Westpac typical cruises, but then they didn't know.
Okay. Did you end up telling them after you came back?
Oh yeah.
You had to at that point, right?
That was a good thing for my mother,
Yeah. Was that a common theme? Did you find that a lot of guys were kind of keeping it under wraps or trying not to say much about what they were doing?
We didn't really. No, you didn't. I didn't. I didn't write anything in the letters. Just things are going fine and da 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 and
I understand
this
that.
and that and
Yeah.
But my dad would write a lot and my mom and.
Did they ever share were they seeing things? Were they trying to fill you in on current news or anything like that?
Town news and
town news. Okay.
Going on in town and general
business as usual kind of thing.
Yeah, business as usual.
Okay. Yeah.
Business as usual.
That's interesting. Yeah. So what was it like? We talked about getting out of the military. Your service time being up. What was that transition like for you?
I think it took a while to, let my hair grow down, stuff like that, and finding a job, and eventually getting my electrical journeyman's license and things like that. Spent a couple of years at one job, and it would change and whatnot. It finally blended in.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes a little bit of time to kind of shed that. I'm no longer. I'm not on the boat anymore.
Right.
I'm here. I'm walking on 2 feet. I got my
I'm
job.
not wearing my uniform.
Yeah, exactly.
My work uniform or dress uniform.
Exactly.
Don't have to have it all.
It's still
pressed.
there though. The military's still there. It's still part of you as well.
Oh, yeah.
It's never leaving.
No, it's
never. But I'm sure it was definitely a transition. So how many years after Vietnam were you out? Did you get out of the military approximately?
I got out in 74.
Okay, so about a year after that you went over.
So I was 23 when I was in Vietnam. So I was 24 when I got home. Spent probably 2 years at home, and then I eventually met my wife, who was from Manchester, born and raised here.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I went to work for Monsanto up in South Windsor. They were making plastic Coke bottles for Coca-Cola, and I was an electrician there. And her mom worked in the tool crib, and there was a Christmas party that her daughter was going to, and she asked me if I was going to the Christmas party for Monsanto. And her mother thought I was married. I said, no, I'm not married. I said, I'll take your daughter out. She says, you're married. I go, no, I'm not married. So that's how I met my wife. And one thing led to another. We got engaged. And then we got an apartment. I got an apartment before we got married up in Rocky Hill and moved out. So, I've been in Manchester longer than I was in my town. I've been here for 41 years.
Wow.
So this is my
Yeah.
Probably more of my hometown than Meriden,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, for sure.
I think I go, wow, I've been here 41 years. Oh, my gosh.
Meriden's where you came from, but Manchester's your home.
So what I spent 18 and a half years there, if that, you know, 1912, left in two, you know, so I wasn't there. This is where I've been from. You know, I did work for the town a long time ago. I was an electrician in building maintenance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and my children were born and raised here. They attended schools here. So, church here.
Yeah,
you know, I got married. We got married in St. James Church.
Oh, wow, yeah.
You know, back in the day.
Yeah.
We got married. It was the worst. It was the worst blizzard, one of the worst blizzards we had. We got married January 7, 1977.
Oh, wow.
And to think about it, for those who would remember, when they plowed Main Street, they pushed it into the center of the street on the line.
Oh, wow.
And then there were cutouts to go down the streets. It's changed then.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
it was a pretty bad snowstorm.
Yeah.
And I had joined the Army Navy Club back then because we had our reception there. So,
Oh, okay.
of course, since then I've rejoined. I don't know if they give me any credit going back that
For
long.
coming back, yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
But, you know, of course, I got involved in things in Manchester with the kids growing up, involved in Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts and
Yeah.
whatnot.
So as the years have gone on with you and your wife, have you, talking more again about like the general attitude of things? We've had conflicts, since Vietnam. How have you noticed? Again, we talk about the reception of the community. How has it been that consistent? Has it been, you have young people who are you notice are joining up because you've been involved also with the Army Navy Club, the DAV, VFW. Have you talked to other veterans
we talk about it?
Yeah,
and like I said, you asked, and I think the people are more aware of it, more concerned with it.
Yeah,
because of all the conflicts or whatever you call
yeah,
wars.
Yeah.
We're always there, and things going on in Ukraine. It's like, and that Putin. It's like, good Lord,
Mm-hmm.
Definitely he didn't expect what you got over there from them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, why are you destroying the land that you want trying to take over?
Yeah.
It's like doesn't process.
Doesn't process.
Mm-hmm. But no, people are more aware,
Yeah.
Our adult children and us, we talk about it. My wife, of course, gets upset with many of the things, more so than me. I said, don't worry about it. You don't know what our military has. We have capabilities. They don't tell us everything. You don't need to know everything.
Right.
You know?
So you've got a different understanding of how it works than maybe a civilian does. Somebody who has no experience with the military. There is that. I think you're right. There's that level of. There's operations. There's a point of contact.
Right.
There's somebody leading this investigation.
Right.
Whatever it is.
Absolutely.
There's a process that we have an understanding of that most people don't.
No.
Yeah.
And I'd say, we've got these nuclear submarines. You don't know where they are. They probably got some off the, in the waters of Russia, just doing what they need to do.
Yeah.
That, like you said, they don't, think the way we do.
Right.
Because of our experience in the military. So I kind of I don't brush it off, but I go, don't worry about it. Why even think about it? Just let's go on with our lives,
But do you think it's important to educate? Do you think it's important to, when we talk about, the public's general reception of something, especially when it comes, Vietnam, we had protests. We had people that, were met with distaste when they came back. Do you think it's important for us to educate, maybe not necessarily telling them all the nitty-gritty details, but to give people an understanding of this is why we think this way. This is why I'm not worried because I have, you know what I mean?
I think so. They should be educated more on it. Like you said, don't give them every detail, but hey, listen, you don't know what we have. Government's not going to tell us all their power they have and what they have and the weapons they have.
Yeah.
So
of course.
Have trust.
Yeah.
Have trust.
What's one way? What's a way that somebody, because as veterans, I don't know. You work with the VA, the VFW, etc. When do you have opportunities to share with civilians? Do you have opportunities? Is the dialogue between veteran and civilian an open dialogue? Would you say? Do you think that there's communication happening there?
I think there's some,
but it's mainly veteran to veteran, almost.
Mainly veteran to veteran.
Interesting, yeah.
Really, I mean, if you meet a civilian and they might ask you something or want to know something, well, you try to educate them, but it's not that often.
It's not that often.
It's more veteran to veteran.
Right. Why do you think that is?
We're camaraderie. Mm-hmm. We understand. It's just like, as you know, veterans don't talk a lot to other people. My wife and stuff, things that are bothering you, or you're reflecting on something, or flashbacks, or whatever. And you'd rather talk with a brother or sister veteran about it because they understand you better.
Yeah.
You know that for a fact.
Absolutely. Yeah,
You know,
because
they
it's somebody
can-
who's experienced it. It's somebody who's
We've all experienced something different in the generations, but we all understand about it. Whether it was your generation or Vietnam or a Korean War vet, we don't have too many World War II veterans around.
I know.
So
I think that's why it's important for us as veterans to have these we're having a veteran to veteran conversation, but a lot of people are going to listen to this. And I think that when we talk about the reaction of the community to wartime, when we talk about how people are moving, from one conflict to another, having, being able, one, as a veteran, to answer those questions, but then as a civilian, knowing how to ask the right questions, or just opening that dialogue. I think in my experience, it's the same way. It's very much veteran to veteran. It's not so much veteran to civilian, strictly because I've noticed a lot of people are nervous about asking. They don't want to ask the wrong question.
right.
They don't want to ask something that's going to make somebody uncomfortable, or it's going to make
Right.
bring up things for us,
Right.
which is part of it's an occupational hazard. Being
Right.
a veteran, part of it is, if I'm going to talk about it,
Right.
things are going to come up, and they're hard things, but they're things that I have to talk about in order to continue on, to give you a better understanding. So now I don't have to re-explain myself, in those situations. So what are you doing currently? What have you been doing? You've been doing this or we can even do over the past couple years. What have you been involved
Many
in?
years.
Yeah.
Many
When did that start?
Well, I can't even remember when I started, but I'm one of the veterans counselors for Manchester, and we have finally gotten an area in the Weiss Center to meet with a desk, a laptop, a little conference area in the front of the building. There's a number of veterans call, and it's, of course, no borders. If somebody calls from Bolton needing assistance, we're going to help them.
Yeah, that's great.
I don't know. I can't remember when I started that, but
Yeah.
there's two of us, another Vietnam veteran and myself, and it's been, and it's volunteer. You don't charge people. You can't. You've read things that people do that stuff, which makes me very upset. I've been rewarded by, and over the years I've helped, I know 3 Vietnam veterans' widows get their husbands' benefits. And we both we'll even meet them up at the parking lot at the town hall, and I'll drive them and be with them when I take them to the VA in Newington.
That's great. Yeah,
and of
walking
course
through
they
that
have
process.
to tell that counselor or whatever, he has permission to sit with me. So that's a reward, that they got their benefits from their husbands dying from mostly Agent Orange illnesses.
Yeah.
Which is great. Or how you can help a veteran get benefits, or you educate them to get them.
Yeah.
I had a senior at the senior center, Korean War veteran. I got him over there, and he's gotten a doctor there. He's got eyeglasses, so
that's fantastic.
It's
they're getting the help they need.
The
assistance. Yeah.
I don't know why they waited so long. But
I'm guilty.
Some have, it's like, well, this or that, and I don't need to go, or they had a bad experience 20 years ago.
Yep.
I says, go back. This is your you earned this.
Yeah.
Let the government take care of you.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I've been doing that for a very long time. I was the commander of the VFW Post 2046 for 5 years. They kept putting me in, and I would say to my comrades, it's just not me that's made it successful. It's your help.
Yeah.
We got 100% membership when I was a commander, so that was a good thing. But it was time. I gotta stop.
Yeah.
Then we just elected a new commander in the DAV Chapter 17. I was the commander for 2 years instead of 1. I wanted to do 2, and we've done well with that. So I've been involved in that. The one of the self-appointed caretakers, even though it's the town's memorial, Vietnam Wall. Myself and a good friend, Bob Venti, would go up there. We'd put the flags up in front of the wall and, just look around and whatnot. And unfortunately, he died, I think, a year and a half ago now from Agent Orange. So I took that, still do that. I decided last year, I think it was last year, I went up and I cleaned and polished the wall by hand. Sorry, but I didn't want the town to do it. My brother-in-law, my ex-brother-in-law is in marble and granite fabrication for kitchens. I said, what do I clean it with? He told me,
give me the info.
What do I use for wax? And I did.
That's
I
fantastic.
wanted to polish it up nice. Yeah. And also, all the sidewalk area was all breaking up because when they put that in, there were roots from those trees that they took out, pushing it up. So I contacted Director Peter Conyers, and he got a hold of the town manager, and they did a big repair. They redid it all. They re-landscaped. Actually, Bob was still alive for some of that. And we said to Rob Topping, I says, well, it would be nice if you guys are planning to put low, small bushes in which they did. They really did. And I told them they did a fabulous job.
That's great.
The parks guy, it looks beautiful.
That's great.
Redid poured new walkways, got rid of those roots.
Yeah.
Put in a sprinkler system. They moved the flagpole to where it is.
Wow. Yeah.
So
that's good. That's great. I'm sure that feels great to see too.
As a former town employee, I like to let them know what they did was fabulous.
Yeah.
So they hear it. You don't hear it a lot. Trust me. Yeah. I remember when I worked for the town. Oh yeah. You stop because it's noon and you stop at Dunkin' Donuts to get something to eat or whatnot, and our taxpayers are like, what are you doing? It's like, really? I don't do that. I won't do that.
Yeah. No, that's great though. That's good to. I think it's very important that you're living in a town where there's support. You're living in a town where they're honoring, where they're remembering.
And another thing we finally got that the Public Works Department did, our Public Works Director, they put in a vault at the Veteran Cemetery in Hillstown Road for the ashes of the flags when they're destroyed and burnt.
Yeah.
And they're going to get us 2 barrels side by side. I'm hoping, I'm going to talk to the people at the Elks, not this year, but perhaps we can have a ceremony there for the public.
That would be great. Yeah, talk about bridging that gap between civilian and veteran.
Right, because I know I've heard interest in it from the people, and there's plenty of parking there, and there's plenty of room.
Yeah.
I know they do it in the parking lot at the Elks Lodge, but I know the 2 people who are in charge of that now. And actually, I'm a member. I never know what they've done with the ashes, but we have a vault. They're going to put a stone there, a headstone, describing what that's all about.
That's fantastic.
It is. It's fabulous. And I had told the Public Works Director, I said, we need to get the JI, the current, or somebody, get a Channel 3 to do a story on what you guys did for the veterans of this community.
Yeah, it's extremely
important.
I
want you to get
recognition
for it.
Yeah, because it's not happening everywhere.
No,
Manchester,
when you talk things up and do it, communicate and say, and you have people working, Director Conyers, it's fabulous. And he's a veteran also.
Yeah.
So that's been fabulous.
That is fabulous, yeah.
I also was appointed, I think it's a year and a half ago now. The board of directors decided to establish a Veterans Advisory Board, committee, whatever you want to refer it to. I was appointed to it. I ended up being co-chair.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I've been a member of the Permanent Memorial Day Parade Committee for, I don't know, since I was the commander of the VFW. So that's been a long time. But with my wife retiring in July, we're going to do some travel, and I did send the letter of resignation in.
Okay.
It's time You know, I need
Yeah.
time with my wife.
Of course
not
you do.
all the meetings, or if I want to take off in May and not be here.
Yeah, yeah.
So I gave my time there.
Yeah.
I was at one time for, I don't know how many years, Nico was on there, cruising on Maine for a very, very long time.
Yes, yes.
I don't know, 15 years. I don't even know. You know, when you do things, you don't kind of mark them down. This is when I started.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was involved in that.
Yeah.
And I think that's on. Oh, of course. We finally, the advisory board, we spoke about a veterans coffee house.
Yeah.
The closest one is Willimantic. Of course,
Okay.
Danielson, you don't want to go to.
Yeah.
It's too far, and we felt the need that we need one in this town.
Yeah.
And to invite the surrounding towns, Bolton, Coventry, Andover, etc., East Hartford, Hebron, if they wish to come. So we established it. And the first opening was on May 18th, which was very successful.
It was fantastic. Good to hear.
I thought maybe we'd get 30 people. We had 50 veterans.
That's fantastic.
We had, of course, the people who were involved in the VFW, the DAV, the Army-Navy Club, the Legion, the Elks, because, you know, the Elks in town do so much for veterans.
Right.
So much. What happened with that, I'll tell you, was we talk about it at the committee meeting, the advisory board. So one day I texted the chairman, James Amaro, and I said, look, enough talk. Well, being that the VFW and the DAV meet at the Army-Navy Club, I know the secretary, Terry Kiesler, very well, and she said, you know, the board's meeting and the officers are meeting, so I went and made a presentation.
Nice.
I told them, I don't know if you've been to any, but I've been to several coffee houses as a visitor, and I did presentations with my friend Jerry Wright. Probably we did stuff talking about Agent Orange at the time, in Wallingford and Cheshire, Danielson. And I said, they're very successful. It's camaraderie. We're there to help the veterans. We need to know what they need. So, and then we had reps, like I said, everybody was there. James works for the VA I think he reviews benefits, you know, claims. And I had another representative from the VA who handles the eastern part of Connecticut. He was talking to one of the veterans he was helping, and they told him about the coffee house. He came. Town manager stopped by, the police chief, of course,
wow,
Mayor
yeah.
Moran.
Wow.
I had a nice email from the sergeant of community relations, and she said that we'd like to send some officers there to help you guys out, because we had coffee and tea and water and baked goods and donuts and whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
My wife cooked some banana breads and
Oh,
others.
nice.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
So they came and stayed the whole time. They said we'll be here again.
That's fantastic. That sounds so successful.
Oh, it was beyond.
That's
It was
fantastic. So when does it meet? And when's the
third Thursday of every month at 10 o'clock, Army-Navy Club till 12:30. But,
in Manchester?
In Manchester.
Yeah.
And you hang, if it's past 12:30, who cares? But when I told the board at the Army-Navy Club, I said, these other coffee houses have a nice kitchen and cafeteria. You guys at some point, you might want to sell food and let them hang around, hot dogs, hamburger, chicken, whatever.
Cookout,
you can make some money.
Yeah.
I know some people signed up to join the Army-Navy Club. Hopefully we can draft some for the DAV.
There you go.
Younger blood. VFW could use some new members.
Yeah, yeah.
So, it was fabulous. And the town manager said a few words. Stephen's a wonderful town manager.
That's great.
Very caring. They care about veterans.
That's important.
It's very important.
It's a group that we veterans have been around since war's been around.
Right.
It's been around forever. We've been around forever. But and we don't. I think a lot of veterans don't ask for recognition, don't want recognition. A
Right.
lot. At
You're
least I
right.
speak for myself and my father. We're usually like, do it out.
Right,
You know,
I
they're
know.
standing for all the veterans stand up. Me and my we'll just let everybody else stand up. You know, we get a little nervous sometimes, but having that awareness brought to us, you know, having people recognize, I think is very important. I think it's important for us as veterans. I think it's important for civilians as well to gain again, it's all about bridging that gap between, you know, these two worlds that are very different. But we have to go back to them, don't we? When we're done with the military, we're going back in that world.
We do.
So bridging that gap is kind of, you know, I think it's important. I think that you're doing these things. I think that's important to that. I think that helps that process a lot. So I think that's great. I think that's great, Paul.
Well, I don't want any veteran left behind. It keeps me busy. Keeps my mind sharp.
Yeah.
So, you know. And it just has to be done. Somebody needs to do it.
Absolutely.
And
well, Manchester's very lucky to have you, Paul. Honestly, we're very lucky to have somebody who's actively doing these things and, you know, and making it happen. You know, even though obviously you're kind of getting the retirement part, trying to step back a little bit, but still, you do. No. You have to take care of yourself and your family and focus on you guys. You've done plenty. You've done a lot over the past, you know, 30 years. You've done a lot of stuff.
Oh, very much.
So it doesn't go unnoticed or unappreciated. So we're very lucky to have you on the podcast.
I know, because my name comes up a lot. I have people call me.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Paul, was there anything else that you wanted to add before we wrapped things up? Was there anything else you?
Well, let me tell you about the Scappaticci's service to our country.
Yes.
It started out with my grandfather, who was in World War I. He, of course, when he settled from Italy to New York, he joined. It was a battalion from New York. He was in France. I know he was gassed there, and he was also part of that. Many people probably know that lost battalion in World War I. He was in that battalion. It was from New York.
Wow.
When World War II, before World War II, my dad enlisted in July of 1941 in the Navy. He ended up over in Pearl Harbor 2 weeks after it was bombed out. He was aviation machinist mate, flew rescue missions, etc. His younger brother, by a year or two, was Army Air Corps in Europe. My aunt was in during the Korean War. She was a lieutenant in the Army. And my cousin was in during the Vietnam era. And I was the one who went in the Navy too, and I went to the Vietnam. So 4 of us served in wars at the time. We're very proud to tell people about that.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I thank you to the Scappaticci family for dedicated service, honestly.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So,
it's much appreciated. Thank you for coming on here today too, Paul.
I appreciate the invite.
No, absolutely.
This was great.
No, I really appreciate the conversation, and really I hope that people get as much of it that I got out of it. Yeah, honestly.
That's good.
So hopefully that, you know, we can continue this tradition of veterans talking and
That'd be great.
and also sharing with civilians. So hopefully that continues, Paul.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Oh, you're welcome.
Really
My pleasure.